The city of Lethbridge has a new police chief. He's a veteran of the RCMP for over 30 years, working from Vancouver to Halifax and internationally too in places like Europe and Mexico. Chief Shahin Mehdizadeh, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. Great to be here.
That's great to see you here. Now let's talk about some of the experiences. Europe, Mexico. Did you ever have to work with some of the drug cartels? Work on some of those cases?
Well, we were working projects that would take us obviously to different countries, from being in Europe, Mexico, US, but technically they were all drug organized crime files that we were working on.
Now you're in Lethbridge, the windy city here, where it appears like we skipped fall altogether. We went from summer right to winter. Are you settling into your new role?
I am. I've found in a short time. This is my 7th week on the job here, so I'm really glad that I really getting to know the team, and we have a wonderful team with the Lethbridge Police Service, and also the community has been great, very welcoming, so it's been great.
So let's talk about some of the differences you've noticed between working for the RCMP for over 30 years and now with the Lethbridge Police Service during your short time here.
Well, as I often say, police work is police work. Doesn't matter what uniform you put on. In RCMP, obviously, we have the jurisdiction, bigger jurisdictions, longer drive times, etc., where we have in Lethbridge a city to look after. But RCMP also, we had contracts in major cities that I've worked in. But again, when you come to it, police work is police work regardless of what uniform you put on.
Now, during your many years with the RCMP, you've worked in different First Nations communities. Now, you're known for building strong ties with various communities. How will that experience really help you as we work towards reconciliation with the Blackfoot Confederacy here in southwestern Alberta?
Well, with any Indigenous community, obviously, the true piece of building relationship is to understand and to respect their culture and customs, and also learn about, doing our best to learn about them, because sometimes ignorance is not a good thing. When we learn about those customs and cultures and people, we understand that it's a great culture and they have a lot to offer to this country. So it's all about understanding, truly understanding them, and making sure that we work with them to create the societies that we have in this country.
How about the opportunity to potentially hire more Indigenous police officers who can maybe connect more with the Indigenous community?
There's always that, we always welcome those opportunities, and I know there are recruiting people they're investing time to make sure not only Indigenous community, but we're also trying to attract other candidates from immigrant population, more women. But again, it's something that we have to make sure the people who truly desire to get into police work are applying for it, and when they do, we are going to do everything we can to make sure we increase that diversity within Lethbridge Police Service.
Now, you've also brought on Holly Fortier, who's providing some Indigenous Awareness training. How is that going so far, and why is that so important?
Well, with Holly Fortier, the reason we brought her, obviously, she's a well-known presenter in relation to Indigenous culture and history. And I think it is really important for our staff to understand the true history and what has gone on before. Part of reconciliation is looking at what happened before and how we can actually move forward from that. So Holly brings a really good perspective from all Indigenous community perspective, not necessarily one or two, but she's providing a global perspective on Indigenous communities in Canada, the history from the Indian Act to 60s scoop, etc., to really help our staff understand what has gone on and why we are trying to really move forward from the past.
The COVID-19 pandemic has been a big issue around the world, including here in southwestern Alberta. But before we get to that, let's talk about the drug crisis, which has not gone anywhere. You know, and many police officers I've spoken to, they say it's not so much the opioids, you know, like fentanyl or carfentanil. Now it's meth. Meth is apparently taking overrun the streets right now in Lethbridge. How can we keep the drug trade out of our city?
Well, if I had that answer to that question, I'll be making a lot more money. The drug issue has been around for many years, and we see different types of drugs, and depending on the what's out on the street. And what is being pushed to people basically to build that dependency and basically marketing of that illegal product. So the meth has always been around, but it just matter of why is it become a big issue in Lethbridge right now? I don't have that answer. But the solution, I believe, is moving forward is obviously police has a role to play as far as enforcement goes, but this goes beyond just enforcement. This goes about bringing other key players and partners into the equation, from addiction to mental health, to really provide the help that the users need. And also, from the police perspective, holding those who are distributing these drugs accountable by doing projects and making sure we do our part in that front. But the drug problem is a very complex issue. Why people choose to do it, I don't know. Again, we can always ask the drug users, but
some people say it's an escapism, dealing with depression or other issues. And I mean, you're addicted, bottom line. Whether it's alcohol or drugs, people get addicted, right?
But I've been around drug world for many, many years. I've seen from the days that we would seize 50 marijuana plants and we thought we had solved the drug problems of the world, to getting into seizing multi-kilos of cocaine or meth and still knowing that there is a lot more out there. So the problem with drugs today is the way they are produced and designed. Their potency is gone way higher. So,
and more lethal as a result.
They are very lethal, and again, when the potency goes so high, when people get addicted or they even try, they're not just trying to say, okay, I tried and I'm not going to try it again. They get immediate dependence on that drug and addiction to it, just because it's just a marketing scam that goes on to produce drugs that are much more potent and addictive. That way, the criminal element can take more advantage of and abuse those users for the profit.
Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman has been on our show in the past saying we need a full-time SCAN unit, or the Safer Communities and Neighborhood unit, to permanently shut down the drug houses. How important is that for our city?
It is important. The more drug houses we shut down, the safer the city becomes. These drug houses are not just bringing an element of drug use and trafficking. There's whole kind of other issues around drug use and trafficking, which when you have other criminal acts that are committed for those who are dependent on drugs to support that habit, which brings basically other issues to the community safety and from property crime to other issues.
So like maybe also human trafficking as well, right? Probably seen an increase of that too, not just drug trafficking.
That's always on the table as far as, because again, when you look at how females are abused within that world, the sex trade and their dependency, absolutely. There's really, the criminals are actually playing on, using these users to obviously make profits, but also there's other things that are going on that they can make it more profit. Sex trade is being one of them.
Since the province pulled funding towards Arches and the supervised consumption site, we have the mobile unit now set up at the soup kitchen run by the province. But since that was shut down at Arches, have you seen more drugs, less drugs, more users? Are we seeing more needles being spread around the city? What are your police officers telling you?
Well, the mobile unit obviously allows for 2 people at a time to consume their drugs, and then there's a waiting period that they need to go through before the next 2 can go and use that. So it is working, it is being used. Is it enough? No. So my suspicion is actually the drug users are using the drugs away from that site and in other public areas.
And some of those public areas, we've seen the orange tents go up from former employees at Arches with the Lethbridge Overdose Prevention Society, or LOPS. And many people, residents in Lethbridge, are angry at that, saying this is illegal, you shouldn't be doing that. So why aren't you and your police officers ripping those tents down and throwing them aside, saying, guys, you can't be doing this?
Well, ripping the tents down is really not a police function. It's an element that the city has to make a decision what needs to be done with that. But ripping one tent down may result in 2 more tents going up. The whole concept of that comes when you have venue that people are promoting safe drug use in this case, which we haven't seen actually any evidence of anyone going in there. In fact, we were talking, majority of the users in downtown core, when our officer asked him, would you ever use that tent, they say there's no way they would use it, because there is really not proper medical attention or
counseling, right?
counseling that goes on in there. So our officers have not seen any criminal act for us to act on. So as a result, we are kind of keeping an eye on things and hoping things are going to be peaceful between the tent and the protesters. But the liability that they're taking on as far as providing this presumed safe location for people to use drugs if they're using it, we haven't seen any evidence of that. And if somebody loses their life, when you look at these sites, safe injection sites, it's not as simple as giving Narcan to the user, and majority of times it does work, but it doesn't work all the time. Right. So it's all about the liability that they're taking on. I hope they're truly, both the organizers and volunteers, are really reflective of that to know what liability they're taking on.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic really impacted the police force here in Lethbridge? Specifically, I'm wondering too, if a police officer pulls somebody over, do they have to wear the mask? You know, if they're arresting somebody, you know, maybe a domestic disturbance, do they have to wear a mask? Like, how has that really impacted how you serve our community?
We are using every safety protocol that's basically mandated and both by the city and the province, as far as keeping our officers and the public safe. The key is to make sure that we abide by those protocol, and yes, masks. We even wear masks in our office when we are interacting with each other, just to make sure we keep each other safe, because we need to have a healthy team to support and serve the public. So yes, we are taking all those measures.
Now, prior to you arriving here, Shahin, there were some allegations of bullying taking place at the Lethbridge Police Department by the former interim chief and then the former chief before him, who's now living in Ontario. How will you change the culture moving forward and perhaps protect or maybe speak to some of those officers who may have felt bullied?
Well, I'm not going to separate officers who may have felt bullied or whatever. And again, as I mentioned before, what happened in the past really is in the past. I'm not there to dwell on what happened in the past. What I can look at is how I, as a new chief, can conduct myself and help the department hopefully move on from whatever experience they've experienced in the past. I have an open door policy. I'm already engaged with talking one-on-one with employees, not just a few, but every employee. In fact, my schedule is full until probably after the New Year's, giving opportunity for every employee to, again, for me to get to know them on a more personal basis, and then also to show that as a chief, I'm a teammate. I'm one of the teammates, different level of responsibility, but it's all about the team environment, and as teammates, we need to work together to make sure we have a healthy, resilient, and agile team that actually is more happy and comes to work for the most part. I can't fix every issue, but again, if we have a healthy team, we can better serve our true masters, who's the citizen or the citizens of this great city.
We live in some very interesting times. So right now there are calls to defund police all across North America. They say we should allocate some of that money towards funding education and social programs. What would happen in our city, let's say, if the police budget was cut by 50%? What would really happen?
Well, the funding topic, really, nobody has really truly sat down to tell me what that means, because the board keeps getting it on and becomes flavor of the day. But really, what does that mean? Right now, from a policing perspective, not only Lethbridge, anywhere, we have people calling the police because one neighbor can't go speak to the other neighbor to turn the volume down. They refer to the police to do that. People call us to deal with their kids at times. So again, for me to have any sensible discussion about defunding, I need to know what does that mean, because right now we are taking thousands of calls. Are all of them police related? Not really. but we're still expected to respond to them and do our job to serve the community. So the defunding model, if again, 50% cut, as you say, is the city willing to have a maybe 6 to 7 hour police service and that's it? Rest of the time.
A 9 to 5 police gig, right? And then,
exactly.
No crime after 5 o'clock at night.
So that's the thing. So it's all about what does defunding mean? What do they mean by it? And really, is that a realistic? We don't live in a perfect world. And in case of when homicides happens, when crimes that are happening that are really truly impacting the community, who's going to look after that? Nobody has actually given me an idea about how that works.
Lethbridge Police Chief Shahin Mehdizadeh, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much for your time.